15 accountants screwed up poor delivery girl gave this millionaire a brutal warning at midnight, the clock struck midnight, and shadows danced under the flickering streetlights. It was late, too late for a delivery girl like Jessica, but this was no ordinary night. She stood at the gates of a mansion that loomed like a twisted caricature of wealth, dark and magnificent, with gargoyles peering down from the peak of the roof as if they were watching her every move. The air felt charged, almost alive. A shiver crawled down her spine. Why had she been summoned here? The feeling of dread settled deep in her stomach, growing heavier with each passing second. Jessica had grown accustomed to odd requests, but tonight felt different. There was a rumor circulating among her co-workers about these rich folks, how their entitled whims often descended into dark chaos. Whispers spoke of a group of accountants, known to the locals as the 15 Finance Phantoms, who managed the fortune of the billionaire Edgar Barrington. And oh, what a catastrophic error they had made. Tax debacles so severe that they sent waves of shock through the wealth community. It was alleged Barrington was furious, and his rage was infamous. Some who had witnessed it claimed it could rattle the very foundations of the earth. The whispers had warned her to steer clear of that address, but the schedule was ironclad, no excuses, no delays. As she rang the doorbell, an ornate piece that seemed to howl into the night, a soft creak echoed from behind her. Jessica spun around, her heart pounding. Was it just her imagination? A stray cat? The pounding in her chest drowned out other sounds until the door swung open, revealing the stark silhouette of Barrington himself. Tall, with sharp features and a gaze that pierced right through her, he exuded an aura of danger. In that moment, every warning she'd heard flooded her mind like a tidal wave. And yet, she had a job to do. Just then, she noticed something odd. Barrington was wearing an expensive suit, sure, but his hands were fierce, the knuckles bruised and battered, as if he'd been in a fight. "You're late," he hissed, his voice low yet commanding. Jessica felt a lump rise in her throat. Sir, enough." He cut her off, an edge of fury in his tone. The hairs on her arms stood on end. "You'll serve as a messenger tonight, girl." A warning. Before she could fully comprehend, a strange noise interrupted them, a loud crash from the inside. Glass shattered, echoing into the night, and Jessica's heart raced faster, threatening to spill out of her chest. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." Back inside, the ruckus continued. Barrington's expression shifted from fury to something else, fear. "You need to deliver it to the 15. Tell them what you witnessed. If you don't, everything could fall apart." With his voice rising, Jessica sensed the urgency, a familiar spark igniting as anxiety twisted her stomach. Did he mean the accountants? They had to be the ones responsible for his rage. What had they done to elicit this chaotic scene before her? The tension in the air felt suffocating. She knew she needed to decide fast. Either walk away and never look back, or step into the storm that was barreling towards her. For an instant, the weight of the world pressed down on her, the choice looming. But the glint of determination in Barrington's eyes urged her forward. What message could she possibly convey? As she took a deep breath, readying herself for whatever lay ahead, there was one final thought that echoed in her mind. What if this warning meant more than just a message? What if it meant she was stepping into danger she could never return from? Little did she know, the night was just beginning, and the questions were about to multiply. The deafening crash still echoed in her ears. Jessica felt her knees weaken as she stepped inside the mansion, crossing the threshold into a world where wealth twisted into shadows. The vestibule was grand, all marble and gold, but it was like stepping into a lioness' den. Now, Barrington snapped, pulling her from her daze. His eyes glinted with a mix of desperation and wrath. He pressed a piece of paper into her hand. You need to run. Go. The chill of urgency struck her like ice water. Wait, where do I go? The meeting is at the old warehouse on 5th. Don't go alone. Find someone you trust. The urgency in his voice snapped her into action. Jessica glanced back into the mansion, where more chaos erupted, voices shouting, sounds of things breaking, furniture being overturned. Who was inside? What turmoil was igniting such violence? Why are they fighting? She asked, fear spearing through her. Barrington's jaw clenched. They've discovered what has happened. They'll be coming for me next, and you. Me? Panic clawed at her throat. You can't be serious. I'm just a delivery girl. Not tonight. You're the only one who can stop this. Now go. And with that, he pushed her further inside, nearly dragging her through the door. She stumbled but caught her balance, clutching the note tighter in her fist. Swallowing her fear, she dashed toward the exit. The world outside felt like a lighthouse in the storm. But as she turned to the front door, a figure stepped into view, a man with long hair and a face that seemed carved from stone. Stop! He barked, his voice like thunder rolling through the night. Jessica's breath caught in her chest as Barrington's warning flashed in her mind. She had to make a choice, and fast. Without thinking, she darted down a side corridor, heart racing like a hummingbird in her chest. A second later, the sound of footsteps thundered behind her. They were coming, panic-triggered survival instincts. She raced toward the back of the mansion, the note crumpling in her hand. Barrington's face was burned in her memory. If she didn't deliver this warning, she might as well be signing her death warrant. Outside, the crisp night air hit her like a fresh start. The streets were deserted, the streetlights trembling under the weight of the story she carried. Jessica took off down the road, her palms slick with sweat as she sped toward 5th Avenue. What if the accountants were all at that meeting? What if they had no idea what had gone down at Barrington's mansion? She turned the corner sharply, lunging forward as she pulled her phone from her pocket. She skimmed through her contacts, her heart pounding harder with each number that flashed. Who could she trust? Who could keep her safe? Just as she pressed the name of her closest friend, the call connected. Olivia. Get to the warehouse on 5th. There is no time to explain, just go. What? Jess, you're freaking me out. Jessica's mind raced, images of the chaos behind her spiraling through her thoughts. Just go. She hung up, breathless and terrified. The warehouse loomed in the distance, dark and foreboding. Jessica felt her chest tighten, the weight of uncertainty bearing down harder. What awaited her there? She felt as if she was approaching the heart of a storm, an unseen danger lying just ahead. As she reached the entrance, the atmosphere shifted. The air crackled with tension. Shadows moved behind stacks of crates, and the faint murmur of voices reached her ears. What was happening? And then she heard something that froze her in place, a name, uttered in urgency. Barrington. Jessica's heart dropped. She knew she was not just a witness anymore. She was caught in a game that was bigger than she could have imagined. Before she had a chance to retreat, the door creaked open, and a figure stepped out of the darkness, eyes gleaming with a mixture of recognition and surprise. You shouldn't have come here alone. The voice was familiar, but not one she expected. And just like that, everything shifted again. Who was this person, and how did they know her? What had she stumbled into? Just the figure stepped closer, the dim light revealing a familiar face, Ethan, her high school boyfriend. What are you doing here? Ethan? She gasped, confusion flooding her. Memories of laughter, glances shared in quiet corners, and innocent secrets spilled through her mind. You shouldn't be here either. It's dangerous. I know, he said, glancing over his shoulder, eyes darting with fear. But you need to leave now. This is bigger than we thought. Bigger how? Jessica felt a thread of anger pull tight in her chest. You act like I'm supposed to just run. I didn't choose this. You don't understand. He cast another nervous glance behind him, as if shadows might suddenly pounce. Those people inside the accountants, the ones you mentioned, they're not just numbers. They're in on something huge. Barrington stumbled onto it, and now they're coming for him, for anyone associated with him. The weight of his words landed hard. The chaos back at the mansion, Barrington's desperate plea, the urgency in her soul, it all crashed together in a brutal reality. What are they involved in? Ethan hesitated, then said, money laundering, embezzlement. They're running operations that reach all the way up the chain. I was investigating them for a story, a big one. But now I've put myself in their crosshairs. Jessica shook her head, grappling with the sudden swell of betrayal and fear. You. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to drag you into this. You were just a delivery girl in all of this, and I don't you dare say that. She yelled, stepping closer, her heart thundering. I didn't ask for this, but I'm here now. I'm involved because of Barrington. Ethan's expression twisted, and for a split second, it looked like he wanted to reach out, to hold her close and escape, but then he shifted back. You need to be smart, Jess. This isn't just some one-off criminal, this is an entire network. Just behind Ethan, a door banged shut, reverberating like a gunshot in the silence. Jessica's skin crawled. Voices echoed, growing closer. What do we do? She whispered, feeling the grim reality of their time running out. Ethan's eyes flared with urgency. We split up. You need to find your friend. If they see you with me, they'll know who you are. It felt wrong to part ways again, but something inside tugged violently against her instincts. No. I can't leave you. Don't argue. He pressed his palms against her shoulders. I know you want to protect me, but you need to think about what Barrington gave you. The note. It felt like it was burning a hole in her pocket. What if I don't want to run? What if I want to help? He took a deep breath, eyes drilling into hers. Then do it from a safe distance. Find Olivia and warn the others. I'll hold them off as long as I can, but you have to trust me. Before she could counter, Ethan turned, heading toward the shadows. Go. No. She reached out, but he was already gone, swallowed by the dim corners of the warehouse. Left alone, Jessica felt the weight of uncertainty crushing down. Would she listen to Ethan and run, or would she plunge deeper into the heart of the storm? Her choice loomed like a gathering cloud. She glanced around, shadows shifting ominously. The voices were getting closer, and she could sense danger creeping in. If Ethan could be brave, then so could she. The exit was still open. She took a steadying breath and sprinted toward it, heart pounding in sync with the looming darkness. She would find Olivia. She would get to the bottom of this. And just as she reached the door, a chilling laugh echoed through the warehouse. Looking for someone? It was a voice she recognized all too well. Jessica, darling, such a surprise. Her blood ran cold. This was not over. What had she walked into? Could she escape the trap closing in around her? Would she uncover the truth, or become a pawn in their game? Jessica froze, her heart caught in a vice grip as she turned slowly to face the voice. There, illuminated by the single flickering light overhead, stood Mark Dalton, Barrington's business partner. His slicked back hair glimmered like oil under the dim light, and his smug smile sent a shiver racing down her spine. Mark, she breathed, her voice a mere whisper, tinged with the fear that danced in the back of her mind. What are you doing here? Oh, come now, he said, stepping closer with a predatory grace, surely you've figured it all out by now. It's all a game, dear. A dangerous one. And you've made a critical mistake by involving yourself. The warehouse, once a safe haven, felt like a claustrophobic cage. She could almost see the shadows wrapping around her, an unseen audience waiting for the inevitable climax. "You mean Barrington," she said, trying to sound braver than she felt. "What have you done to him?" Mark chuckled, a noise that rattled like broken glass. "You think we'd leave a loose end like him to wander around? He's been a thorn in our side for too long." And now he leaned in, his face inches from hers. "Now, we have you. A delivery girl caught in the wrong place." Panic surged through her. She'd seen that look before, liquor-fueled arrogance. The kind that could make someone do something reckless. Breathing through her rising dread, Jessica's mind raced. She had to outsmart him, even if the odds were against her. "I'm not afraid of you." "Oh, but you should be," he replied, eyes sparkling like cold steel. "You have no idea what you're up against. And now, your little escapade with Ethan has put a target on your back." Ethan. The thought of his safety drove her heart into a frenzy. "What are you going to do?" she demanded, fists clenching at her sides. "You've already crossed many lines. Is this how it ends for the both of us?" Mark's gaze darkened, his amusement fading. "This doesn't concern you anymore, Jessica. You're in deep waters now, and I can either let you drown or give you a chance to swim." He straightened, a chilling smile creeping across his lips. "It's your choice, tell me what you know about Barrington's assets, or face the consequences." Jessica's skin prickled with anxiety and anger. She felt the note in her pocket, the key to Barrington's survival and maybe even a pathway out for herself. "I want to help you," she spat, fierce determination anchoring her resolve. "Suit yourself." Mark's expression shifted suddenly, calculating and cold. "But I must warn you, this warehouse is about to get very crowded. You want to escape unscathed." A low rumble echoed through the structure, the sound of engines roaring to life outside. Jessica's blood ran cold, and her breathing quickened. She was running out of time. Before she could respond, Mark stepped back, pulling out his phone. "I'll give you a minute to reconsider and then we'll see how brave you really are." He turned, walking away, his laughter trailing after him like a dark cloud, wrapping around her like chains. She could feel the walls closing in, fear and desperation colliding inside her. What was she going to do? She could follow Mark, confront him, or make a break for it. But what about Ethan? The clock was ticking, and she knew one thing: every second counted. Desperation fueled her flight instinct. In a split second, she darted toward the farthest corner, searching for cover or an exit. But the muffled voices from outside grew louder, and Jessica's grip tightened around the note, determination setting her on fire. If she was going to expose the truth, she had to act fast. The moment felt surreal, the chaos of it all like a twisted dream. As she moved through the maze of crates and shadows, a plan began to form. Maybe she could use Mark against his own people. Maybe she could turn the tables, but could she do it before it was too late? As footsteps approached from the back, Jess felt the tension thicken around her like a noose. Would she find a way out, or was she about to become another victim of their dangerous game? One thing was clear: the fight was far from over, and the stakes were higher than she'd ever imagined. And as the shadows deepened, she heard a voice say, "Looks like we've got company." Jessica's heart sank. Who else was here? Who were they after now? The sound of heavy boots echoed through the warehouse, vibrating along the walls and sending a jolt of panic through Jessica. She ducked behind a stack of crates, breath hitching in her throat as her heart drummed furiously against her ribs. Shadows danced, and muffled voices filled the air, low and conspiratorial. "Just find her," one voice barked. "She can't have gone far." Jessica's pulse quickened and her senses sharpened. They were coming for her, and she was running out of time. Her mind raced as she thought of Ethan. She couldn't let them find him or use him against her. She gripped the note tighter, a lifeline to Barrington's secrets she now held like a grenade. Here she was, a delivery girl up against polished sharks. The gravity of her situation slammed into her. Did she have the power to change this? To save herself and Ethan? They underestimated her, and now she used that against them. Peering out from her hiding spot, she saw two figures prowling near the entrance, their faces obscured by the shadows. One was Mark, his slick demeanor a stark contrast to the urgency in his voice. The other, a brooding figure, stepped forward, scanning the area with dangerous precision. "Split up," Mark said, the steel in his tone slicing through the tension. "We can't let her slip through. She knows too much." Jessica's breath caught again. She couldn't trust Mark. Could the figure beside him be an ally, or just another pawn in his game? Thoughts ricocheted in her head, but she didn't have time to think. A plan was hatching, one that could buy her some time, perhaps even an escape. As they began moving further into the dark corners of the warehouse, she took her chance. Shifting slowly, she edged into the shadows, her feet barely making a sound. She needed to get closer to the door without being seen, or better yet, lure them away. The large bay doors were her best bet. Once she was outside, she might find a way to warn Ethan, but what if she just led them to him? The thought made her stomach churn. Then again, doing nothing meant certain defeat. In a moment of reckless bravery, she glanced around and spotted an old fire extinguisher resting against the wall. It was heavy and could make a solid distraction. If she could create a diversion, maybe she could slip outside while they checked it out. Heart racing, she pushed her way toward it, every muscle tensed for a sprint. She could hear their voices drifting closer, her fear palpable. From behind another crate, a figure twisted to look her way. Her breath hitched. "Did you see that?" he said, gesturing to the far end of the warehouse. Jessica froze, every instinct screaming at her to run. But then she did something unexpected. She hurled the fire extinguisher against the opposite wall, the metal clanging loudly in the quiet. It was a risk, but it was her only shot. The noise echoed like a gunshot, and in that split second, the men turned, eyes wide in surprise. "Go check it out," Mark shouted, urgency crystallizing in his voice. Adrenaline surged through her, and she took off toward the bay doors, every step laden with hope. She burst through, gasping in the cool night air, heart pounding in her ears. The sounds behind her shifted, confusion palpable, but she couldn't look back. Jessica sprinted toward the street, where the lights glimmered like stars against the darkness. She didn't dare stop. She was free, but, what now? As she glanced over her shoulder, a figure lunged from the shadows, and a cold dread washed over her. She stumbled, bracing for impact, wishing she had taken the time to devise a more solid plan. What had she unleashed? Who else was lurking in the night? And as she felt a hand clasp around her wrist, the world blurred into chaos. The grip tightened around Jessica's wrist, sending a shock of ice through her veins. A voice, low but clear, whispered dangerously close to her ear, "You're not going anywhere." She twisted to face her assailant, heart racing, panic surging like a wave. It was him. The brooding figure from the warehouse, eyes cold and calculating, with an intensity that made her skin prickle. She was too stunned to scream. Instead, instinct took over. She twisted away, elbow shooting back toward his gut. It connected, and he grunted, loosening his grip slightly. "Run." It was a word, but more than that, an invitation to escape. The sound came from an unexpected source. Another figure emerged from the shadows, Ethan. His eyes were wide, filled with both fear and determination. Relief flickered briefly through Jessica before she had to focus. No time for anything else. With a sudden burst of instinct, Jessica yanked her arm free, shoving her friend forward. "Go." She didn't look back as they darted down the street, heart pounding with every hurried step. But the night felt different now. The tension hung thick in the air, as if the shadows themselves conspired against them. Behind them, the sound of boots echoed once more. They weren't just being chased, they were hunted. "Is he?" Ethan's breath was a ragged whisper, glancing over his shoulder. "Mark?" she confirmed, taking a deep breath, fighting against the rising fear. "We have to move." They dashed down a narrow alley, adrenaline pulsing through their veins. Jessica's mind raced, reeling with what they had uncovered at the warehouse. The note. Barrington's secrets. They could change everything, save lives, even. But at what cost? Where to? Ethan's voice was strained, the uncertainty wrapping around them like a fog. There's an old safe house. The one the delivery guys use when things get rough. Jessica felt a rush of desperation. We can hide there, regroup. Ethan nodded, but the vulnerability in his eyes tugged at her heart. Do you really think they'll stop? They must have noticed you were gone. We'll figure it out, she said, forcing confidence into her voice. But the ugliness of their situation clawed at her thoughts, the danger escalating with every second they spent in the open. They turned a corner, ducking under low-hanging branches as they sprinted toward the safe house, heartbeats synchronizing with their pace. But just ahead, headlights sliced through the darkness, illuminating the end of the alleyway. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. Oh God, they've got cars. She gasped, urgency clawing at her throat. The small amount of hope had vanished into the cacophony of panic. They shuffled sideways, trying to keep behind stacks of dumpsters, adrenaline spilling over into frantic decisions. We need a safe spot. Ethan nodded, his face set, and then abruptly pointed. There. The building's door. It was a dilapidated building, its faded for rent sign swinging in the cold breeze. Jessica's heart sank. It could be empty, or worse, a trap. But they had no choice. They peeled toward the entrance, dread knotting in her stomach. With a quick glance back, she caught sight of the car rolling up, the outline of men tumbling out in a rush. Panic soared. Now. They pushed through the door just as footsteps pounded behind them. Inside, the darkness wrapped around them like a shroud. She squinted, searching for any escape. The air was stale, filled with the forgotten memories of the past. Where do we go? Ethan asked, hushed urgency spilling from his lips. Upstairs, Jessica whispered, already moving toward the staircase that creaked ominously underfoot. Maybe if we can get to the roof. But as they started climbing, a sound sent a chill through her, a faint thud, followed by gravel crunching outside. The hunters were searching. How long before they found them? As they reached the top floor, Jessica peered out a grimy window, an uneasy sense of foreboding suffocating her. Below, shadows moved in cautious patterns. They were not just after the secrets, they were hunting them down. Jessica turned to Ethan, their eyes locking in silent agreement. Time was slipping away. They needed a plan, and fast, but what could they do to survive, when every direction held danger? And what sacrifices would they be forced to make to protect each other? The night was far from over, and the true threat lingered just beneath the surface, waiting to reveal itself in a sinister twist. Do you hear that? Jessica whispered, her ears straining for any sign. What? Ethan asked, fear etching his face. It sounds like. Icons of dread settled in, and her voice failed her, as she realized, they weren't just hunting for them, they were hunting for something much bigger, and someone had made a monumental mistake, but what was it? And as the door creaked ominously behind them, the world around them shifted. Jessica's heart raced, a frantic drumbeat echoing in her ears. The creaking door behind them seemed to taunt them in the stillness, but the noise outside grew louder. The thudding footsteps were no longer a distant echo, they were right below, splitting the night with their urgency. We're running out of time, Ethan hissed, pressing his back against the wall beside a shattered window, trying to catch any glimpse of their pursuers through the grime. The shadows loomed larger, their figures shifting uneasily. Stay low, Jessica whispered. She could feel her pulse tangle with dread. Risking a fleeting glance, she caught a glimpse of her assailant's cold eyes just as he passed by. Mark. He was close, closer than she wanted him to be. Right there. A voice barked from below, and she felt every hair on her body stand on end. They can't have gone far. Desperation clawed at her insides. We need to barricade the door. She said, her voice barely a murmur. Ethan shifted toward the dilapidated furniture scattered throughout the room, the remnants of someone's past. A rickety table stood precariously in a corner, waiting to be thrown into action. "Help me," he urged, shoving a chair against the door, his hands trembling with urgency. As they wedged the chair under the handle, Jessica couldn't tear her thoughts away from the implications of their situation. Mark and his thugs weren't just after them, they were coming for information, which meant Barrington's secrets were about to explode like a hand grenade in their faces. She couldn't let that happen. "Do you think they'll find us here?" Ethan's voice wavered, revealing his fear. "They have to not know. We're pinned here. We can only wait." She tried to sound reassured, but inside, her stomach felt like it was tied in knots. Every creak and rustle sent shivers skittering down her spine. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from below, sending both of them jumping. "They're in!" Ethan gasped. "Get back!" Jessica hissed, retreating toward the far wall. She gripped a broken piece of wood, holding it like a weapon. Just then, the door rattled violently, a strong kick forcing it to buckle against the frame. Cold adrenaline sliced through her veins. She glanced at Ethan, their eyes meeting in a moment of ghostly understanding. They were running out of options quickly. The door splintered again, and she could see the edge of a dark boot pushing through the fracture. But just when it seemed like all hope was lost, a loud voice boomed from below. "No! You're going to blow this whole building." Silence hung in the air like a thick fog, confusion mingling with the pulse of fear racing through her. Jessica felt a flicker of hope. Who was that? Then, an explosion of sounds, a loud crash, glass shattering, followed by a growl of anger. Maybe it wasn't just Mark's men down there. Maybe something or someone else had stepped into the fray. The door bucked again, now distorting under the weight of force. "Now or never!" Jessica shouted. They had to move, but how? The roof? The windows? Then a cold thought seeped into her mind like ice water. What if there were another way out? What if? "Ethan, the fire escape!" She nearly shouted, already sprinting back toward the window. He was right behind her. She could feel the heat of his breath as they approached the broken frame. The sound of chaos below grew louder. Whoever was fighting was really causing a stir. "Quick!" Without hesitating, she climbed onto the sill, peering down. The fire escape dangled precariously below, rusted but seemingly intact. Jessica grabbed the edge and swung herself out. "Come on!" She dropped down onto the ladder, heart racing as she felt Ethan follow. But seconds later, she heard footsteps bounding up the stairs inside, with angry voices closing in. They were out of time. Jessica's heart hammered as they scrambled down the metal. She knew they had to hurry, but panic threatened to overtake her senses. Then, just as they reached the last rung, gunfire erupted from above, shattering the stillness of the night. "Go, go, go!" Ethan yelled, shoving Jessica forward just as the echoes reverberated through the darkness. They leaped off the ladder and landed on the ground, breathless and shaken, their hearts still racing. Looking back at the building, fear surged through Jessica. They had escaped this time, but the hunt was far from over. What now? Ethan breathed, scanning the dimly lit street. Something flickered in the corner of Jessica's eye. A silhouette stepped out of the shadows. Another figure. Who were they? Friend or foe? Then, the realization hit her: whatever they thought they'd uncovered, this was just the beginning of something deeper. A chilling whisper of a truth that would change everything. "Do you trust me?" she finally asked, heart pounding in her chest. "Do I have a choice?" Ethan replied, the uncertainty churning like a storm inside him, and with that, they disappeared into the night, unaware of what awaited them just beyond the darkness. The alley was suffocating, the dim light barely illuminating the trash-strewn ground. Jessica's heart raced as she and Ethan pressed against the damp brick wall, gasping for breath as the echoes of chaos faded. Adrenaline surged through her veins, blurring her pain and fear into a razor-sharp focus. Who was that? Ethan whispered, scanning the narrow space, his eyes darting toward every shadow. I don't know, Jessica muttered, trying to hide her own fear behind a veil of urgency. But they could be part of whoever's after us. A loud crash rang out from the building they fled, sending a shiver down her spine. The sounds of shouting revealed that the chaos was far from over. Whoever was on the attack had no intention of holding back. Simon, we can't stay here, she urged, pushing away from the wall. They needed to find a safe place, some way to regroup and plan their next move. From the corner, a figure emerged, stepping carefully into the flickering light. The silhouette slowly materialized into a familiar face, someone who made her feel both comforted and wary. It was Tara, an old friend from the precinct. Jessica. Ethan. She hissed, glancing nervously around. I thought I lost you two for good. What is happening? Before Jessica could answer, the sound of footsteps drew closer, heavy and deliberate. We can't talk here, Tara said, her eyes wide with urgency. Follow me. They ducked into another alley, squeezing between two dumpsters. Jessica felt the chill in the air, a goosebump-inducing reminder of their precarious situation. The closer they got to Tara, the more questions filled her mind. Had she come to help or was she a part of the danger stalking them? You were always the adventurous one, Jess, Tara said, glancing back with a half-smile, but it faltered quickly. But now isn't the time for heroics. There's so much you don't know. What are you talking about? Jessica shot back, her voice rising with frustration. We're running for our lives. Exactly. And I have information that something bigger is going on. A loud thud interrupted her, the sound echoing through the alley. Jessica's pulse quickened as she instinctively grabbed Ethan's arm. We need to go, now. Tara hesitated for a moment, but then led them deeper into the maze of alleyways. They moved silently, the adrenaline racing through their bodies fueling every step. Are you sure we can trust her? Ethan whispered, anxiety seeping into his tone. I don't know, Jessica admitted, the truth settling uncomfortably in her chest. But we don't have many options left. As they turned another corner, Tara suddenly stopped, eyes widening. This way. She pulled them through a narrow doorway into an abandoned shop. The room smelled of rotten wood and mildew, but it offered them a moment of cover. Jessica's mind swirled with thoughts of what lurked outside, every creak of the old building making her want to bolt. What have you found out? She pressed, willing her fear to the back of her mind long enough to focus. Tara took a shaky breath. It all leads back to Barrington, and Mark's not alone in this. There are other players involved, people we didn't think could be involved at all. They're ready to clean house. Sweat trickled down Jessica's brow as she processed Tara's words. Clean house. What does that mean? But before Tara could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed closer, a crunch of glass under heavy boots. They were coming. They're here. Jessica whispered, her heart pounding fiercely. Hide, Tara breathed urgently, pushing them behind an old counter as the door shrieked open. Shadows passed by, muffled voices filtering into the darkness. Search the place. I want them found now. Mark's voice sliced through the tension, echoing off the walls. Panic surged through Jessica. If they found them here, she met Ethan's eyes, the weight of their dire situation hanging heavily between them. This was only getting worse, and they could already feel the net tightening around them. Tara glanced sideways, her own fear evident. They're getting desperate. We need to find a way out. A base to figure out. What to do next? Right, Jessica answered, her resolve hardening. But in the back of her mind, an unsettling thought emerged. What exactly would they find if they took the fight back to Barrington? The footsteps grew closer, and Jessica knew they had to make a decision. Escape or confrontation? Shivers raced down her spine as they awaited an answer hidden in the shadows. The footsteps were thunderous, reverberating off the decrepit walls. Jessica's mind raced as she fought to silence the panic clawing at her throat. Each heavy footfall felt like it was getting closer, dragging them toward an unknown fate. She could barely breathe, her heart hammering in her chest like a drum. Ethan leaned closer, his whisper barely audible over the noise. "What now? We can't just sit here." "We wait," Tara hissed, eyes narrowed with determination, but Jessica detected the tremor in her voice. The shadows swirled in the room, the dim light barely pushing back the darkness. Jessica's body tightened, muscles coiling as she strained to hear the muffled conversation outside. "They split up," one voice said, and her stomach dropped. "They've gotta be here somewhere. We're not leaving until we find them," Mark snapped at that moment. A sudden crash echoed just outside the door, and the entire room seemed to tremble. Jessica felt a jolt of fear that shot through her like ice. "They're coming," she breathed. Tara's fingers shot to the edge of the counter, anxiety etched on her face. "We need to move. Now." But chaos had taken possession of the alley. A new sound erupted from outside, shouting, chaos. It felt like the whole world had descended into madness. Jessica's mind screamed for them to act, but fear had her frozen, paralyzed by the uncertainty of their next step. "Listen, we can't just sit here like sitting ducks," Ethan urged, his voice straining against the panic that consumed them all. Jessica shot him a look, ready to argue, until she heard it, the unmistakable sound of a door creaking open followed by another round of footsteps. It wasn't just Mark that was searching for them, he had backup. Okay. Jessica whispered fiercely, trying to regain control of her racing thoughts. "Tara, do you know another way out?" Tara nodded, pointing to a battered door in the back of the room. "There's a stairwell. It goes to the roof. We can get a vantage point. Then go," Ethan urged as a shadow moved at the door. With quick, silent breaths, the trio darted towards the back. Jessica's hands fumbled against the rusted handle, and with all her strength, she pushed the door open. The scent of stale air and dust engulfed them as they slipped inside. The steps creaked under their weight, each sound magnified in the eerie silence. They scrambled higher, barely daring to breathe. Jessica could feel the adrenaline coursing through her, giving her a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. They reached the rooftop, the cool night air filling their lungs. But just as relief washed over her, a distant shattering sound broke through the stillness. Tara pointed toward an adjacent building. "We can jump to the next rooftop. It's risky, but we have to get away. Or get caught," Ethan muttered, his eyes darting. "We want tea." "We can't," Jessica said, determination hardening her voice. The fear of what they would face below felt almost worse than the possibility of getting hurt jumping the gap. "On three," Jessica said, trying to summon courage from deep within. 1, 2, 3. They jumped. Time stretched as they soared through the air, landing hard on the other side. Jessica stumbled, pain shooting through her leg, but she didn't stop. "Not now. Keep going," Tara urged, urgency fueling her words. In that instant, a blare of sirens erupted in the distance. Jessica glanced back toward the alley. Was it too late for them to vanish into the night? Before she could ponder, the ground seemed to tremble again, this time with a presence they couldn't ignore. Someone was following them. Jessica turned sharply, realizing the shadows were not just lingering, they were alive. What did they really know about Barrington? And what kind of game were they caught in? As the figure emerged from the darkness behind them, dread pooled in her stomach. How far would they go to uncover the truth? Whatever it was coming fast, and it wouldn't wait for them to find their footing. Jessica's heart pounded like an unrelenting drum as they dashed across the rooftop. She could feel the panic tightening her chest, every instinct screamed to get away. The sirens were getting louder, cutting through the chaos of the night, and the weight of dread fogged her thoughts. They had to make it past the next building. "Keep moving," Tara yelled, urgency spilling over. "Where to now?" Ethan asked, his breath short. There's a fire escape. Jessica pointed toward a rusted staircase at the far end. They sprinted toward it, desperation igniting their speed. In that moment, every decision felt monumental. Jessica reached the edge first, scanning the staircase that hung precariously. I'll go first. She took a deep breath, the air slicing cold against her skin, and climbed down. Each clang of metal echoed like a warning, each step a reminder of how close they were to being discovered. When she reached the ground, she glanced back, nodding for Tara and Ethan. They followed hastily, their expressions a mix of fear and resolve. Just as they reached the bottom, a shout emerged from above. There they are. The sound pierced the night, sending a chill through Jessica. They had to run again, quick and silent, as the footsteps of their pursuers echoed down the alleyway. She felt the adrenaline surge and propelled herself into the night, dragging her friends along. Where now? Ethan huffed, gripping her arm. There. Jessica gestured toward a nearby parking garage, deep shadows cloaking it. In there. We can hide and regroup. They burst inside, the heavy metal doors slamming shut just as footsteps echoed behind them. Inside, the garage was dark and cold, parked cars lined up like silent witnesses to their plight. They caught their breath, hearts racing as they huddled behind an old sedan, fear palpable in the air. What did Tara mean? Ethan finally asked, his voice low yet trembling. What else is going on? Jessica looked up at him, resolve hardening in her chest. I don't know everything, but whatever Barrington stumbled onto, it's dangerous. Mark of all people is involved. We have a long road ahead. Ethan nodded, a spark of determination igniting in his eyes. And we have to figure out how to expose this. Make sure it doesn't go unnoticed. We can't let them win. Just then, the sound of footsteps stopped just outside the garage door. They held their breaths, squeezing into the shadows. We know you're in there. A voice called out, familiar and chilling. You can't hide. Just give up. Jessica's mind raced. This wasn't just about survival anymore, they needed to turn the tide and reclaim control. Ethan, I have the note. Barrington's truth. If we can use it to outsmart them, we might just have a shot. Then we have to get to it. Tara whispered, pushing forward. We can use the back exit and circle around to another street. There's a park nearby, we can hide and make a better plan. They nodded, urgency pulling them onward. They slipped toward the building's exit, heartbeats racing, shadows wrapping around them like a cloak. Every sound felt amplified, the hum of traffic outside, the rustling of their breaths. The tension hung thick in the air as they exited into the moonlit parking lot, adrenaline coursed through Jessica. They could make it if they moved fast. Now. She urged, and they sprinted, dodging the rays of light that spread in long stretches across the pavement. They reached the park, the trees offering shelter. They ducked behind a large oak, breathing heavily yet alive with the spark of rebellion. Let us lay it all out, Tara said, determined. I think if we can piece together the connections, we can expose this for good. Ethan nodded. Let us not waste time. What do we know? Jessica took a breath, the weight of the night crashing down. Barrington's wealth and influence were likely masking deeper crimes. Mark isn't just a partner, he's a player in something larger, and we're in the eye of the storm. Suddenly, a rustling in the bushes startled them, and Jessica's heart lurched. If it was Mark's men, it could all be over. Stay quiet. She hissed, but it wasn't Mark. A figure stepped through the trees, holding up hands cautiously. You're in danger. It was Mitch, one of Barrington's old friends, a person Jessica had known since childhood. Mitch? Jessica whispered, both relieved and confused. What are you doing here? They're closing in. You have to get out now, all of you. His voice was urgent, eyes wide with fear. They know you're onto something big. Can you help us? Tara asked. We have to warn Barrington. Before Mitch could respond, the weight of heavy footsteps could be heard approaching. Mark's men were right behind them. This way. Mitch urged, darting across the park toward a hidden part of the trees. No, we can't. They'll find us. Jessica's mind raced, but Mitch's determination shone through. Trust me. We'll distract them. You have to go. No way, Ethan said. We're not leaving you. Mitch swallowed hard, urgency radiating from every inch of his body. You must. It's your only chance to get out of here alive. The sound of rustling got closer, and Jessica felt desperation claw at her throat. Could they really abandon their ally? But there was no time to weigh the risk. Go. She yelled, the urgency spilling out of her. Ethan nodded reluctantly. Let us move. They sprinted further into the trees, the strategy taking shape in their minds. They had to warn Barrington. They had to pull every string, make every connection to expose Mark and his corrupt network. As the moon hung high, illuminating their path, they raced ahead, hearts pounding as hope seeped back into their veins. The future felt uncertain, but the fight for the truth burned bright. Their journey was just beginning, but this time, they were not just running, they were turning into warriors, and nothing would stop them. Together, they would shine light into the darkest corners of greed and corruption, reclaiming their lives along the way. And yet, even as they moved forward, shadows loomed behind them, a reminder that the real battle lay ahead. Now was the moment to dive deeper, to pull together every ounce of courage and face what awaited them. They had come too far to turn back now. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on what's next. This is the moment to show your support by smashing that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep our community thriving. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what just happened. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling conclusion. Your support means everything.